Kia ora and welcome everyone to today's webinar on the AI Enhanced Leader of Learning. I will open up with a karakia for our session. Mauri ora kia mātou, arahina mātou ia mātou mahi. Ke mihia he hua rahi mō te kaupapa o te mātauranga hangarau. A whina atu, a whina mai. Te pau e here nei ia mātou. Hui e, tae ki e. Today, we're excited to welcome Dr. David Parsons from AcademyEx. With a career spanning senior academic roles in both New Zealand and the UK, David brings extensive expertise in digital technologies, software development, AI, and contemporary education. His work focuses on how technology can meaningfully enhance teaching and learning, helping educators think critically about innovation, curriculum design, and real-world impact. With more than 200 publications and a strong focus on practical application, we're thrilled to have him share his insights with us today on using AI for practical classroom and administrative efficiencies in education. And David, in the spirit of today's topic, I should probably confess that the image on the opening slide and this introduction was developed with the help of AI. So perhaps to kick us off, how do you feel about AI writing introductions about experts in AI in education?
Well, of course, as I'm sure everybody knows, if you ask AI to tell you about yourself, it will get it wrong. And the more common your name is, the more likely it is that it will get it wrong. So I think it's utterly incapable of doing it on its own. But of course, it's quite good at tidying it up, isn't it? So I often use AI to sort of tell me what's wrong with stuff that I've done. And sometimes it comes up with some good suggestions, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think it's great. It's great to have someone to ask, isn't it? Who doesn't mind? Unlike like asking one of my kids or go, I don't know. So yes, AI certainly has its role to play, doesn't it?
Thanks, David. And I will hand the presentation over to you.
Thank you. I'll just go and get my slides open, and then we'll make a start. Okay, right. I'll share my screen. So, kia ora, everybody. It's great that you've come along today. I'm just going to make sure I share my sound now because it's the thing I always forget. There's a couple of videos coming along. Here we go. Yes, so the AI Enhanced Leader of Learning. I have to say that it's a bit of a grab bag, this session. And I think that the reason is that when we talk about being leaders of learning, of course, it's a very, very broad space. And so, of course, I mean, all teachers are really leaders of learning. We are leaders in our own learning spaces, in our classrooms, or wherever our education takes place. But of course, there's also that extra layer where, leaders have particular roles and, senior leadership principles, all of those things as well. Many of you, I'm sure, have, leadership roles related to technology, given that, this is a TENS webinar. And so I'll be sort of jumping around, and you might at times think, oh, what the hell is he talking about now? But hopefully it will all kind of make some sense in terms of the different perspectives that I've tried to bring in to try and make sure there's something there, hopefully, that will, everyone can respond to. So that's my intention anyway. So yes, how can we be AI enhanced leaders of learning? I was kind of asked when we were discussing the topic to focus on, not like too much in the sort of the pedagogy space, but more in the sort of efficiency, so like the management side of leadership space. But I think there's also some other aspects in here as well that we can engage with. So yes, it's a fairly broad ranging attempt to capture some ideas around leading learning. I've got an incredibly short video clip to play you at the beginning, which is teaching safe from AI. This is from a longer video where a guy builds his own AI to be totally honest about, so it doesn't obfuscate at all. It just tells it like it is. And I just wanted to play this extremely short clip to you to open us up.
What job do humans assume is safe from AI that really isn't?
Teaching, AI is already handling lesson planning, grading, personalized tutoring, and even delivering lectures at scale.
Creative and
So yes, well, who knows? I mean, I'm sure many of us are going, well, there's a bit more to teaching than that, bro. But nevertheless, we often think that teaching is safe from AI. I think there are many jobs that we think are not easily replaced by AI, but AI thinks, no, you're not needed. I could do it myself. Well, who knows? I just thought I'd open with that interesting challenge. I've got a very simple agenda. Initially, just a few things around how AI is changing education. And then I want to just talk sort of more broadly about how teachers use AI in their work. And then the sort of the bulk of the session is around how AI might work in school leadership. So what can school leaders or education leaders broadly do with it? And then, of course, at the end, we've got time for some Q&A. So I hope we'll get some interesting feedback. There are a few things for you to respond to as we go through. I've got an answer card and a few Slidos, so you will get a little bit of time, opportunities to interact with me, particularly early on in the session, for you to give some feedback. Okay, now I'm sure that many, maybe all of you, depending on your roles, have spent some time looking at the draft technology curriculum, in particular the digital technologies component. I won't I'm not going to talk about that in any broader sense, but one of the things I thought was very interesting is that it refers to AI under the heading Futures Literacies. Futures literacy is something I actually teach in one of our master's courses, and I really think it's a fascinating area, but I do not think that AI is futures literacy. It talks about AI adoption involves technical, social, and ethical factors, including human oversight and accountability. Yeah, that's not the future, is it? I mean, that's now. So I think maybe the government need to rethink about the phrasing of AI as a futures literacy and think about futures literacy as one thing and AI as something a little bit more now. Anyway, I just felt that was an interesting thing. I'm going to play another video now. This is one you might have seen because I think it's very popular, about one of those schools in the US where AI does the teaching. And this, of course, is not the only example. This video is a little bit longer, but I think it's a good sort of opening gambit for thinking about, as we lead learning into the future, what do we think it's going to look like? Okay, I'll just play this one. I'll maximize the screen on this one.
This probably isn't what comes to mind when you think of an average school day. Kids breathing fire,
find a spot for your foot,
climbing a rock wall, and even learning the art of grilling. But for students at the Alpha School in Austin, Texas, this is no field day. Here, K through 12th graders are proudly cutting classes, spending just 2 hours a day learning math, science, reading, and writing, all with the help of an AI tutor and without a single teacher.
morning launch time.
Mackenzie Price is the co-founder of Alpha School and its 2-hour learning program.
This is a school without teachers.
We have no teachers at our schools. Can you believe that?
The Educators are a suite of AI-powered apps that gamify lessons, monitor progress, and with the help of eye tracking, keep tabs on students' attention span.
Who's teaching you?
I think the app is teaching me, but I'm also teaching myself.
All as adult guides, many of which have never been teachers, look on without interfering with their robot counterparts.
Are you comfortable having guides in the classroom that don't necessarily know the core curriculum?
It's okay that our guides aren't experts in physics or math or whatever they're doing. They are experts in their students.
It almost sounds like the guides here are told, you're here to lead the kids to AI.
Our guides are not allowed to teach. They are coaching students to become self-driven learners.
Price says the AI tutor personalizes lessons for each student, allowing them to learn class material in half the time, and according to data from Alpha, score in the 90th percentile on standardized tests in most grade levels.
This one's a little unusual.
It all comes as students nationwide grapple with AI's role, while some critics say it's too soon to know if the tech's having a positive effect in classrooms. One study found generative AI tutors can sometimes inhibit learning if students become too reliant on the tool.
How do you make sure that the AI that is teaching kids is doing what it's supposed to be doing?
We have a lot of guardrails in place to make sure that kids are not dealing with some of the issues that come with what we hear about with AI.
Still, at Alpha, where tuition costs $40,000 a year, academics are just the beginning.
This is called our check chart.
Each student must complete a long list of tasks before they can level up, including things like run a mile without stopping, solve a Rubik's Cube, and even
Independently put together a piece of IKEA furniture.
all in an effort to teach life skills and promote passion projects.
Welcome to the Alpha School Airbnb.
Like this group of sixth graders who are running a real Airbnb.
How old are you?
I'm 11.
You're 11?
Yeah.
And how much money did you guys make with this Airbnb?
So we have $10,000 of confirmed bookings.
Over at Alpha High School,
You made an app. Wait,
I developed an app.
16-year-olds Elle and Sloan are getting ready to pitch an AI-enabled app that gives dating advice.
I want to ask my crush out to prom in front of all of her friends. Is that a good idea?
It really depends on her personality.
So you've been learning from AI,
Yep.
and now you're building your own AI?
Yes.
A full circle experiment, putting these AI academics in a class of their own.
Yeah, a lot to take in there. And as a parent, I was a little sketched out seeing those little kids locked into their laptops with their headphones on. We used to have sustained silent reading back in the day. This is way beyond that because these are gamified, interactive apps. So the kids are given full attention. And Price says they only do that.
I'll stop it there. It just rambles on a little bit. That's the main part of it. Well, that's an interesting video, isn't it? I don't know if you've seen this, but something similar is coming to New Zealand in 2027 in Auckland, among other places. Anyway, so if you're looking for another job, here's an opportunity for you. Yes, it seemed this looking at the Inspired Edge Academy, they seem to be looking at doing very similar things to what's in that video. What I'd like to ask you now is to respond to that video. How does the content of this video align with your own vision of how AI should be used in education? The answers aren't in any particular order. So if you could join Slido, so you can either, if you've got your phone handy, you can scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com and put the number in, and then perhaps you can respond in this poll, which hopefully is going to be available to you. I'll just give you some time to hopefully connect to that. It's always a relief when I see the first response appearing, because I know it's working. Looking for around 15 or so responses, looking at the number of people who joined us. So it'll be good to see how many we get. We've got 5 so far. Just give it a little bit longer.
Yeah, so I was going to say, David, one of the interesting things is some of our participants are actually note takers using AI to be
Right.
a
So they're not going to be
participant.
responding to my survey,
Yeah,
are they? No.
they're actually using AI to attend the webinar. So
Right.
obviously they have a heavy interest in AI because they're already using it. But there you
Fair
go.
enough. Okay, well let me just pick that up. So at the moment, what we've got is the two at the top seem to be the most popular. So it's got one or two things in it, or it's a good example, but my vision would differ in significant ways. And then we've got someone who's not really sure, and I get that too, because I think, when I watch it, I'm torn between, yeah, actually getting kids to build a piece of IKEA furniture is good, isn't it? There's practical life skills are well worth doing, but that whole, well, they're not allowed to teach, they're not teachers and they're not allowed to teach. It's all down to the machine. That side of it, I wonder. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably, feel similar to the way you've responded there. It's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? In a way, it's got some of those things that we've often talked about as being, couldn't education be more flexible? Couldn't kids be doing more real life things? All good stuff. But of course, it's tied very, very closely to the fact that how do they learn anything? It's compulsorily done through the machine. Maybe that's the interesting challenge. Anyway, thank you so much for those of you who are real people for sharing your thoughts. That's excellent. And if you're, I'm not sure how many people will actually read their notes, but shame on you for not turning up. Okay. Right, let's move on. Right, so how are teachers using AI to save time? Well, by sending note takers to meetings and then just skimming them afterwards. And that does save actually a whole bunch of time, doesn't it? So it certainly has its uses. Um, I thought I'd start with something pretty straightforward. I liked this page actually. It's got a whole bunch of stuff on it, and it's got lots of actual teacher quotes rather than just somebody writing a blog where they've used AI to make stuff up. Well, unless they made up the quotes, who knows? But there's nothing particularly deep in any of these, but I think it's a good sort of starting point. So yeah, writing emails, and what I liked about the one of the teacher quotes there was, I use it to clarify information if I'm struggling with words. I put in a parent letter, for example, and have it fix it. Then I edit their fix. What I liked about that was it isn't like I get AI to write my emails. It was I try and write my email. I ask AI to make it better, and then I work with it some more. So I think that's a great example, isn't it, of how we can use AI in our leadership tasks or just our general teaching tasks as well. By being in the loop. I mean, I don't even like the in the loop thing. To me, it feels like a cog in the machine. I think we should be outside the loop, really. But anyway, it's just an expression, isn't it? Creating quizzes and classroom resources, pretty straightforward. Differentiating instruction. This seems a very popular one. Changing the reading level. And of course, I'll mention Diffit later. There are tools like that. Something came up. I was marking a master's report earlier this week, and it was a really interesting one because they were talking about using AI to help do exactly this. But they were saying that when the systems try and differentiate, they make assumptions about what the year levels mean. And so they're typically based on a native speaker. And if you're an educator that's dealing with, say, English as a second language, for example, it's a whole different ball game. Those differentiations are not accurate because you're not dealing with kids who've grown up with that language, so they're starting from a different place. So the sort of blanket differentiation tools are not necessarily working for every student. I thought that was a very interesting insight. Aligning plans with standards. I think anything where you can take two things and compare them, I find AI is great at. It's kind of like, you get beyond zero shot where you ask it to do something and you go into like one shot, two shot, three shot, whatever. You're giving it things to work with. And I think that's where it begins to get better, basically. I use it a lot for these kinds of things. How well does this align with this? Giving students feedback on writing, creating exemplars, well, yes, and who knows? There's a whole bunch of ethical issues in there. Generating ideas, and of course, summarizing notes, those kinds of things. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with these kind of fairly standard practices as the way that AI is currently being used in this kind of managing efficiency space, as opposed perhaps in a pedagogy space in many of these examples. I'd just like to ask you now, those of you who are here, what AI tools you find useful as a leader of learning. So this is an answer garden word cloud. So of course I'm after single words. So I'm just after the name of a tool. Um, so, I mean, you can interpret a leader of learning any way you like. I'm just kind of interested in what tools you have been finding useful in that space. So that's the Answer Garden link, Answer Garden CH5180053. So if you can maybe just pop that URL into a browser. I know it's slightly longer than just waving it at a QR code, but it's not too long. And then in a moment, once you had a chance to do that, I will jump out and show the word cloud once you've started putting things into it. But I'll leave that on the screen a bit longer. Probably should have generated a QR code, but hey, it's too late now. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, but I will be sharing again in a minute. So if you didn't get the number, I will be coming back to that. But I just want to jump out into the answer garden as an admin, and then I can see what's coming up. Okay, I'm not seeing anything yet. Oh, yes, I am. Perfect. It's all coming up now. Perfect. Answer Garden's a bit clunky and the refresh is a bit slow. I'll show this on the screen now. I tried doing it on full screen and it half disappears, so unfortunately I'll just have to do it on small screen. Okay, I'll reshare my screen. Oh, thanks, Megan, for sending the link out. Yep. Right, share. Okay, so I'll just refresh that and see what we've got. Answer Garden's become annoyingly populated with ads lately, but hey, it's still quite a neat little tool. Yeah, so I guess the general tools are the ones we would expect because they're the most flexible, right? So if we talk about ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, because they can do so many different things. And then we've got the slightly more focused ones like Notebook LM, which is a bit of a rag. It lets you put specific things in it. Of course, the others do as well, but Notebook LM's kind of designed for that. But it's interesting to see Brisk, which is, the most specialist one. I mean, of course, it's got lots of tools inside it, but it is very much a specialized tool for educators, and I think it's quite a nice tool. Looking at some of the others, Canva, yes, certainly something that lots of people use, and of course, there's a lot of AI inside it. Goblin Tools, few other bits and pieces, Read AI, Canvas. So yeah, a few other ones, but yes, I guess the sort of overall summary is that I'll just refresh it and see if there's anything else come up. Is that LLMs, the general ones, are probably the most useful in the sense they can do so many different things, and yeah, I mean, and not even just as language models, but I mean, so for example, that the language model will have an image generator inside it. I mean, that's not a language, but it's another AI model that is available to you. Excuse me. Okay, so that was cool. Let me go back to here. Um, So I made a list myself, and I where this list mainly came from was just me looking at what people talk about in the community of practice. So I'm sure some of you are members of the AI Teachers Community of Practice that runs on the EPIT platform in one of their circles. And these are some of the things that I see people sort of mentioning. So obviously, there's lots of the usual LLMs that teachers use. Napkin, I like Napkin for figures, diagrams. It's getting better and better. It's got some interesting features now that can make your pictures much prettier, which I don't think is particularly helpful, but I think it looks great. But basically, it generates good basic, simple black and white figures if that's what you want, which is usually what I want. Um, Consensus. I mean, I use Consensus from time to time. I think there are other better research tools, but there's certainly worse ones. I'd certainly favor it over Perplexity just because it focuses on academic stuff and not just any old stuff off the internet. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Gamma. I used to use Gamma a bit more. I got a bit sort of bored with the whole AI slide thing, but I have found it helpful in the past for, I've got a paper and I want to make a presentation out of it, summarize this into a slide set. It's definitely it's pretty good at that sort of thing. Idea map, yeah, there's lots of mind map tools. I do use idea map occasionally with students just as a sort of way of getting different groups to generate brainstorms around the same thing and then doing a bit of compare and contrast, and that often leads to some interesting conversations. Notebook LM, of course, which allows you to bring lots of different source documents in and generate lots of different outputs from them. And some people find it helpful to have those multiple different formats. Yes, I put my material in, I can generate a podcast and a video and a slideshow and all of that stuff. So it's for some people that's useful. Flourish, you might not be so familiar with. I saw that recommended by a teacher for data visualization. I gave it a bit of a go. I found it harder to use than Julius, which is the one that I would normally use to just like make a graph out of a few numbers, but it definitely does nicer outputs. And I think if you're really interested in visualization, one of the things I've seen people do, I haven't tried to do it myself, is you can take the really fabulous looking examples, and if they're sort of appropriate for your content, then you can put your data into that visualization, and then you can reuse their visualization. So there's some cool stuff there. And Canva, of course, was mentioned on your own feedback, that there's some good AI in there. So these are the kinds of things I see people engaging with on the community of practice, and some of these are, I think, particularly useful tools. One more I'm going to get into the leadership a bit more in a moment, but I also thought this was interesting. There's a webinar that was recorded by the Manaya Kalani Trust, and there were some people presenting from Hornby, and I just thought it was a really good example of kind of what's happening a lot in schools. Brisk, which is great for all sorts of materials, but particularly good at things like formative feedback. I love the little tool where you can put in a rubric and you can ask it to do um, feedback within a Google Doc, and then it'll put comments in the Google Doc. And I think that can be really good formative feedback. And they know you as the teacher, if you want to be in the loop, can kind of, go back and decide which ones are good and you want to keep or add your own and so on. But I think that it's that targeted feedback I think is great. Diffit mentioned already. Differentiation, lots of teachers using that, lots of people using Notebook LM, and lots of people using, well, they're using ChatGPT, but that whole thing that everybody's using LLMs. I looked at some of the examples they had, and I kind of like this one, just because it seemed a bit wacky. You are John Lennon, born again. Create the lyrics for a song about the process of photosynthesis. Well, that was good. Here comes the sun. I know that was George Harrison, but anyway, it's in the same space. But yeah, so it kind of reinforces that the kind of there are some common ways in which where as educators and leaders of learning we're using tools. Let's get more into that leadership space. I got this off the SLTAI website, which is in the UK, which is an AI for SLTs. And you replace that one that says, "Are you a school leader?" with almost anything really. Are you a teacher that has a never-ending to-do list, needs more hours in the day, frustrated with how much time you spend at your laptop? Um, this is the thing around where AI can make our lives easier in that administration management space of leading learning. And I think, it's a good sort of way of getting away from, yes, we use them as educators, but also there's lots of opportunities from that leadership of learning perspective. So I'll go through a few things. I got this from an article that was called an AI wish list from school leaders. And I thought this was quite interesting because it was about not the AI itself, but how to use the AI. And I'm sure that many of you in your roles are probably having to help leaders. Even if it's not yourself, you'll be helping other leaders with this. So, giving guidance to inform decisions, empowering stakeholders to better understand AI and its implications, capitalizing on it to support the work of teachers and staff, and picking platforms, right? So what tools are we going to use? All of those, I think these are the kinds of things that I'm sure many of you are engaged in. Um, what I wanted to ask you though a bit is not so much how you help other people, but what's your own AI wish list? So, and what more do you want from AI? So this is more an opportunity for you to go a little bit beyond the list of stuff we already do. What is it that you would like to be able to do with AI that you're not doing at the moment? And it might be things that AI can do, or it might be things that you wish AI could do. So what's your AI wish list? So if you've already gone into the Slido, in theory, this should have rolled over to the next question if you've still got it open on a device. So this is an open-ended question, so you can write as much as you'd like. For this one, it's not a word cloud, so please write whatever you want, and we'll see what your AI wish list is. Yeah, while you're doing that, I mean, I think one of the things that I find is that I have AI wish lists and AI starts to meet them. So I used to think, wouldn't it be great if AI could do a decent diagram? And now it's getting quite good at that. Wouldn't it be great if it did what it was told? It's getting marginally better at that as well. So yeah, I think the wish list is interesting because it's a bit of a moving target. I'll give you a bit more chance to type before I respond to what you've put in.
While you're waiting for all of those, David,
Hmm.
I in the background I opened up Napkin AI
Hmm.
because I had never used that before, and I was having a play around because I've got this wānanga coming up, and
Hmm.
I need to develop, I guess, some visuals for a slide on a bunch of questions. So I dumped those questions, and it's come up with some nice diagrams. I'm a fan. So I
Yeah,
think,
I do like it. And then of course you can go in and say, oh, generate something like you can with any AI. But if you've got data that you want to
yes,
turn into a figure, I think it's great.
yes.
I use it quite regularly now.
Gave me
Um,
some good options for different layouts and different ways I could present it. And I went, oh, that's exactly what I want. And I hadn't
yeah,
started on this piece of work because I was just like, oh, this is just too big. But yeah, thanks for that wee
cool.
shortcut.
Have you seen the feature where it now kind of styles them so you can make them look amazing, like they were covered in butterflies or like
Not
trees or whatever.
yet.
It's I mean it's not something I would use normally, but I can see that for some, if you want those sort of beautiful images, it can be really cool.
Yeah,
Not the
so
sort of thing
I
I'd use in an academic paper, but
maybe not. No. So I chose a particular style and now it's come up with color options. So I'll go
yes.
away in the background and
Yeah,
continue.
have a go. And I can't
Yeah.
remember now where the other things are, but there's some kind of extra layer of styling where it does sort of amazing graphics, which is a very recent addition to Napkin.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
that's great. Oh, there's lots of stuff in here on the wish list. Let me quickly go through these. Um, one of the things that I like about these responses, I'm just going to pick out some of these, is the integration stuff. So a lot of these are about, what I would like is AI to join this to this. And I'm going to pick that up later with one of the other examples that I think that's one of the things that AI can be really great at is I've got all this stuff and I've got this stuff and it's not joined together. Can you do it for me? Yeah, that's definitely a good thing. Um, yeah, refining prompting. I think one of the things that AI is quite good at actually is writing prompts for you. I've seen a lot of people do that. They say, "Please write me a prompt to do this," and then it writes a better prompt, or not necessarily a better one, but you can keep that journey going, right? So it can help you. Um, Better understanding of rubrics, something that makes slides. Um, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the problem, isn't it? That AI dumbs everything down, right? So yes, it will do stuff, but it's got no concept of what's interesting or what matters. Because of course the trouble is, a tool that operates on probability is always going to go for lowest common denominator, isn't it? Bland is what it's after. And so yes, you can. I find it loses so much sometimes in the translation from what I had to what I think I wanted. Um, but yeah. Yeah, I wish it didn't randomly. Yeah, I mean, I still don't know whether that's fixable because of the nature of large language models and the other models that they do, because of course they operate on probability, not reality, or not fact. So how can you stop them, making stuff up? Hmm. But yeah, some great stuff here. And I think we've all got this idea, yeah, I want it to make a fantastic video with one prompt and but it knows what's in my head, even though I didn't write it all in the prompt, all those things. Great. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you. I'm sure we all would love all of those things. Okay, cool. Let's move on. This is a fairly bland slide, but I thought it was a sort of bit scene setting. Opportunities and challenges. That's what it is, isn't it? We've always got these two sides to it. Um, this one, it talks about AI in school management. It opens with the sort of opportunity schools can foster more dynamic and inclusive learning environments, etc., etc. But there's a cost, there's financial cost, and there's also the digital divide. And we've seen, this idea that we've already got this terrible digital divide. AI only makes it worse, and so these are major challenges. Um, I thought this was an interesting slide too. Although it's a rural principles study from North Dakota, so you might think, well, blimey, that's not going to play very well in Auckland, is it? But surprisingly, I kind of feel like all of the things that these principals came up with are ones that we all think about. Mainly learning through the news. I mean, I think it depends how you define news, doesn't it? But I mean, most of what I learn about I learn about it from looking at there's an AI for that daily newsletter and going and finding some of the often videos that are linked so yeah, my exposure is probably more through news because by the time I read a journal article, it's, the study's 2 years old, So what are the concerns? Well, ethics of AI, student cheating, privacy and misuse. I'm sure those all sound very, very familiar. Reduction of critical thinking, student laziness, loss of originality and deep learning. Yes, again, I'm sure we've all seen those. Um, Barriers to implementation, the usual things, time constraints, lack of good examples, trying to align to the curriculum. Here's a tool from the US. Can I use it here? Well, not easily. Lack of training and access. So I thought, yeah, actually, that was a really I think this captures the concerns of most people in leadership of learning. Like these are all the things that we're having to deal with on a daily basis. I know it feels like I'm asking for lots of feedback. It kind of stops now because if you use the free version of Slido, you only get 3 goes. But this is my last question. In what ways do you already use AI as a leader of learning? So how do you think it helps you in that particular context? I mean, of course, leader of learning may mean different things to different people, but how do you already use AI in that space of leadership? So just one more of these should be again, just updated on your phone if you're still using the same Slido link. And so this is the last bit of feedback till we get to the Q&A, and then I'll just run through a few other things. I've probably got too many slides, but I'll skim through the important ones. Yeah, emails. I don't really use AI for emails, and I notice now on my phone, whenever I got to respond to an email, it gives me an answer, and I never like it. It's just because it doesn't feel like it sounds like me, I guess. But in terms of like, the daily grind of admin emails, I can see the value. Cool. I don't think anybody will be surprised in seeing what other people are writing. Certainly feedback on student work. I don't use AI for that, but we've got some big scale programs at AcademyEx with hundreds of people doing micro credentials with a fast turnaround. And we have an AI system, partly AI system that helps us with that just because of scale, right? It's otherwise it's almost impossible, isn't it, to give feedback manually if you've got hundreds of students and they expect to turn around really quickly because they're on a short course. Yeah, cool. There's some great stuff in here. I'm sure that none of these are unfamiliar. So it's good to see that you're making good use of AI. Textual analysis. I'm not sure what the context is. I find a lot of students try and use it for, analyzing qualitative data in their research projects, and I'm not sure it's great at that, but it can help, I think. Yeah, promoting the use with staff. Yeah, and I will let's talk about that soon as we go through. Thank you for that. Okay. I'm going to pretend that I know what LI's SC are.
Learning intentions and success criteria.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. Yeah.
Teacher
I mean,
language.
yeah, I could easily have bluffed it, but quite often
Yeah,
I
you
see
never
these
know.
things and I go, I don't know what that is. Perfect. Okay. I can see there's one more time. Oh, and of course, this is the other thing I find interesting about Slido is that it tries to do a bit of AI. And it does it at the most basic level. So, of course, it's utterly useless. So we've got student, staff, and resource. No, I'm sorry, AI, you've completely missed the point. So yeah, it's a good example of how AI, if you don't do it well, it's a complete waste of time. Coding languages, yeah, interesting. Yeah, and of course, I'll talk about coding and AI at the end if I've got time. Thank you. Right. Okay. I'm going to go through these slides quickly. You can come back and look at them later if you like and see where I just wanted to share some resources, different ideas, how different people are using stuff. This is how educating education leaders are using AI tools, and you won't be surprised by any of these. Communications, admin, teacher hiring, professional development, supporting instruction, demonstrating how it can be used, researching job-related topics. I mean, I'm sure that all of these seem very familiar to you. One of the ones that on there was assisting with hiring, and this is a nice page actually. 13 ideas for school leaders to try. You might want to go and have a look at this later. I've just picked out an example here about assisting with hiring. So it can be used for generating questions that a candidate might have rather than, just using it to generate your own. It can evaluate your job descriptions and so on. And you can use it for rubrics to evaluate candidates. And I kind of like, so this is his prompt example from that page, or one of them. Pretend to be a new teacher at a private high school. You've no teaching experience, but you've had other jobs before. You're teaching English. I'm the principal. Can you ask me some questions you might have? And on the page, she's got a little, conversation with the AI. I think this is great. This whole thing about helping you to prepare with your conversations with somebody by trying stuff out. And this is great because if you're ready for questions that you hadn't thought of, so much the better. This is in the same space. I'm not going to spend long on it, but there are some particular examples in here that I thought might be worth picking out. So things like, the admin of calendars, timetables, classrooms, labs, and staff. That's a tricky problem. That whole thing about who goes where and when. So AI can help with that. Suggesting cost-saving measures, hopefully not getting rid of staff, but other things. Speeches for school events. I mean, there's always a task that someone needs to do. Reminders, routine correspondence, and then the data stuff. So there's, again, I think some useful things for us to go, yeah, actually, there's things that I'm not using it for yet, but maybe I could. Maybe I could. And this is a specific example. So I just stuck this in here because it's a particular teacher writing on Edutopia. This is what I use AI for in my educational leadership. Otter, well, yes, we talked about transcription earlier. Summarizing student feedback against guiding questions. I like that one because it's like, don't just ask AI to summarize something. Tell it how you want to summarize it. What are you looking for? I think that's a good tip. Now, the thing that several of you came up with, I want this and this to work together, and they don't. This example, they used it for synthesize data from HR software to create a personal observation tool and cross-reference approved leave days from the HR system with self-reported timesheets. Exactly that. I've got these two things. I constantly have to look at them both and manually think about two things. AI does that for me. And then I also like this last one, which was very much like that. Let me use AI as a rehearsal. Using personas. So as an experienced assistant principal, guiding me on how to approach a parent who is reluctant to engage in problem solving regarding their child's behavior. I'm sure that those are the sort of things that you dread having to do. And getting the AI to help you prepare for that. Yeah, that preparing thing I think is another great way of using it. Other things, well, a whole bunch of stuff. This is from Philippa Hardman's blog posts. She mostly writes about learning design. It's a very useful Slack Substack thing. She talks about policies, appraisal, speech, all of the same things. But what was interesting, I thought was, she talks about working with ministry documents, and also makes the point that 80% of the models misread the documents that you give them. And I just wanted to pick that one up because often people have said to me when I've talked about, the reliability of AI. Well, of course, why don't you just use Notebook LM? It's a RAG, it uses the resources it's got. So, you don't have that problem. Well, that's not true, as I'm sure many of you have actually discovered. I mean, just to be clear, this is one of those papers that hasn't gone through peer review, so I'm not in, it might not actually be 100%, but they did some experiments around hallucination. And even though Notebook LM hallucinates a lot less than the generic LLMs, it still does. And I mean, I've definitely noticed this myself. A while ago, I did a few of those, when they weren't still cool and interesting rather than just annoying. I generated some podcasts from my slide sets from one of my courses so the students could, listen to the summaries. And I found the longer the slide set, the more likely Notebook LM was just going to make stuff up. So we have to be a little bit careful about, yes, I fed in all these ministry documents and I've asked all these ministry documents about what I'm supposed to do about X, but you still have to check it afterwards. You can't trust it. A couple more examples as we run to the end. I thought this was quite cool. It's from the same page I mentioned earlier, the 13 AI ideas for school leaders. And this one was about multimodal AI. And this was a school leader taking a picture of a space. I shared a picture of my home office and asked ChatGPT to sort it out. It read the photo almost flawlessly and made logical suggestions, some generic, some I'd not thought of. It reminded me, one of my daughters came around my house the other day and she said, "Oh, you can get AI to, feng shui your feng shui your house." I thought, "Oh God." Anyway, so I let her have a go, and it was okay. It did suggest that I got a big plant in the corner. Which of course, but that's another responsibility. Then I got to, keep the damn thing alive. But it did remind me of this. So AI, I've experimented a bit with Chat GPT with like, here's a photo of something, tell me what I can do about it. Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's utterly useless, but I do think it's something worth thinking about. If you want some concrete things that might be useful, there are some Chat GPT prompts for school leaders from Toddle AI. So there is a whole bunch of them. There's 40 prompts, and of course it's Chat GPT, but you can use any LLM with these if you want to. They're kind of templated. There are multiple prompts for a series of different use cases. These are the 10 use cases, and under each of these you'll find a whole bunch of prompts. And it's free, so you've got nothing to lose. I thought some of them were quite good. There are one or two useful ideas in here under each of those things. And somebody mentioned writing emails on one of those feedback things. There's a whole bunch of things under number 5 about streamlining your email writing, and we've talked before about challenging situations. Number 8, managing conflict or challenging situations. So yeah, you may find that a useful resource if you want to take a look at those prompts. If you're a leader of learning, what sort of tools could you use? Well, of course, a lot of these are international, which are slightly problematical. There's a few I've listed there. Toddle I've mentioned, School AI I mentioned at the beginning. Sorry, no, SLT AI. There's also School AI, Key GPT. Brisk has got some management features as well. A whole bunch of stuff. Nothing that necessarily will do everything you want in New Zealand, but nevertheless, some of these tools do have some really useful components that might be worth thinking about. Talking of SLT AI, yes, I appreciate this as an advert, but I thought you also might quite, understand what she's talking about. So I mentioned before that this is a UK website. On their website, they've got a bunch of, people talking about the product, and I quite liked this one. So I'll just play this short video.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm a head teacher at a primary school in Lancashire, and I just wanted to share with you how amazing SLT AI is. It's been the best money that I've spent from my school budget this year, and it was a total and utter bargain. So I just thought I'd let you know some of the features that I've used in particular that have really, really helped me, but there's so much there really is, and it's constantly being added to week by week as well. So I have used it for creating really easy and quick social media posts to kind of engage the local community and parents. I have used it to create aspects of my head teachers report that I've sent to governors. don't think they even noticed. I've also used it to respond to school improvement priorities, and I carried out an RSHE survey for parents a few months ago, and it was able to do me a really quick, really thorough analysis of all the things that the parents had wrote in the open text box at the bottom, rapidly did it, and I was able to share that with the school community and governors. And just last week I used it to help me respond to a complaint that I'd received about good old parking outside of school. So if you are wondering whether it's worth dipping your toe in the water, honestly, please do. You will not regret it. It saved me hours and hours of work, and let's be honest, in this job, what a gift that is. So go for it. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, I mean, so, just some usual suggestions, and which sort of teacher hasn't come across the parking issue at their school. So yeah, I thought that was quite, on the nail in terms of the sorts of things that people want to do with these tools. I know she's praising it to the heavens and it's just an advert, but the sorts of applications are clearly the sorts of things that are useful from teaching. I've got one or two more things before I wrap up. I found this article, and they called it a conceptual model for principal AI use. So, using it as a principle for instructional leadership. And I got ChatGPT to recreate the image, and I want to talk about that again in a moment, actually. But the reason that I picked out this particular one was that box that I've highlighted at the bottom: principal actions in leading AI for instructional leadership, participates in training large language models for instructional leadership needs, which might sound a little bit excessive, but it was one that I just wanted to pick up a little bit in a moment. And by way of a sort of detour, you'll notice that this particular one, it does the English is classic AI. I asked it to make a copy of a figure and redraw it, and it was slightly flaky. But one thing I've really noticed lately, I don't know if anybody else is in this space, that ChatGPT has actually got very good at ripping off other people's diagrams. I noticed this because one of our slide sets uses the old e-learning planning framework, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. But it's no longer available because, as you know, TKI's gone, and so has like everything that was ever written about the New Zealand curriculum on the ministry's websites. And I looked at some of the other e-learning or digital learning planning frameworks around. They're all rubbish. There's the really boring one from Ireland, and then there's a few from the US, but they don't have as many steps. And they're like, they kind of feel like, well, you've either done it or you haven't. They're almost useless to my mind. I'm very biased probably, but I quite liked the old e-learning planning framework. So I asked ChatGPT to make me a copy, and it did it pretty much 100%. Because I said, just make it exactly the same, don't change anything. And then I said, oh, by the way, can you just change e-learning to digital learning? And nothing broke. Now that's quite recent, I think. Well, certainly for ChatGPT. In the past, it would break things as soon as you tried to make it fix something. So that whole the wish, it could have took me back to the wish list. I used to think, oh, I wish you could, get a diagram and make a copy of it and then just edit it in AI. But of course, in the past, it couldn't do words or anything. It was completely useless. And now it can. Well, there you go. Anyway, that wasn't particularly relevant, but it was something that I noticed this week, and I thought that's kind of handy. Um, Coming back to this one around, training large language models, I think that's a bit much. But one of the things that I think can be useful as a leader of learning is making your own GPTs. It's actually the reason why I ended up paying for ChatGPT in the first place, to enable me to do it. If you've done these, you'll know they're super easy. All you're really doing is you're doing something similar to what you do in Notebook LM. You upload a bunch of documents, but then you can provide your configuration documents to tell it how to behave, and you can tell it what resources it can draw on. But the key value of these is that you can then publicly share them with others. So publicly, of course, I mean, it can be specifically to people that you want to help. So you can create a little, customized version of ChatGPT that does a particular thing, and it can make it easier for other people to use. One of my colleagues created one of these a while ago for formative assessment. So rather than getting a students to have to manually go and formatively assess their work by putting in their own "can you read this for me" prompts, he did all of that so the students could then just put in their assessments, and it would sort of allow them to interact and have a conversation about how they could make them better. So, it's not particularly sophisticated, but I think it can be very helpful. And of course, if you're using Gemini, I don't use them because we don't have that platform, but I understand that Gemini gems are similar in concept. So it's not just, you can not only do it in ChatGPT, but the idea that you can make your own sort of little AI that other people can just connect to and use, I think is very valuable. And if you want to lead learning in particular ways, you can provide these for people to use. Anyway, just a thought. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was building an app, because code generation in AI in the last 12, 18 months has been phenomenal. So when vibe coding started, if you probably know, vibe coding is where you just prompt something to make an application for you. It's just got so good. I've been using a range of tools. I've been using Lovable and Replit and Claude Code. And there is lots of others, just as an inspiration. But you can build yourself an app to do something. So if there's something that you need a system for, it's not necessarily about, oh, there's an AI for that, but you can get AI to make an app for that. The thing on the right there, several years ago, I wrote this analyzer for digital design. So for people writing courses around digital things, I wanted to help people know how well they were embedding learning theory. So I created this app where basically you go and you answer a bunch of questions about your course design, and then it comes back and gives you a bit of a feel about, well, to what extent it covers different learning theories. And it was all, I've had it for years. It was quite clunky. A couple of years ago, I updated it by going into a combination of ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot, and basically improved my existing code. So I got it to improve what I'd got, and I added a couple of features. And then, but recently I just went to Claude Code and I took, if you like, the specification of what I had, and I added a few extra features, and I just asked Claude Code to build it. And it's phenomenal. I mean, that's just the picture of it on the end. But I said, oh, can you add a button? I used to have this manual thing that would download a text file. It was really ugly. I said, can you add a button when it's finished so that it downloads a formatted PDF? And it just does it. Now, of course, there's lots of things to worry about here. You have to be careful about data. This is one where it doesn't remember anything. People come in, they put in their data, it generates a PDF for them, they go away. It doesn't keep anything. It's totally secure. So you have to be really careful about vibe coding something that's gathering data, and is it secure? Is it appropriate? There's lots of questions there, but I think it's something to think about. Do you have a simple task that needs doing that could be done by a simple app? And it would be safe because it's not sort of gathering private information. Something else to think about, I think. Very last one, and I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I thought it was a nice way to finish, in the sense that it's called AI in the Classroom Without Undermining Learning, a strategic guide for education leaders, and it's got these 5 practical tips for leading AI integration in your school. You may not find anything in here that you're not already aware of, but I do think it provides a nice checklist for, okay, these are the things that I can really think about as a leader of learning, as someone who's the tech expert. What's the best way to go? Create a struggle first culture, starting with yourself. I'm sure many of you are doing that. But building the credibility with staff, listen first, then plan, prioritize for administrative efficiency first, which is kind of the theme about tonight, isn't it? Establish a clear policy, but monitor its impact and refine, and then start small with a focus on equity. I'm general stuff, but useful advice, I think. I know that I've left it a bit late. If people do want to start for Q&A, I'm happy to do it. But I do want to give Lisa, who's been waiting for a whole hour of me droning on, for an opportunity to talk about studying with AcademyEx. Just a couple of slides. So, Lisa, are you ready to tell everybody about our wonderful programs?
Absolutely. Thank you, David. So really, really briefly, we, as you can tell, we are non-traditional and really, really practical. So we've got a couple of programs that I think will be of interest to you all coming up in July and August. We do a postgrad certificate in digital and collaborative learning. That's contemporary skills, but just as much changing the way you teach, collaboration and leadership. There's an intake in August, and we have a limited number of 50% scholarships available. Those scholarship applications close on the 10th of August. That program is the first third of our Master of Contemporary Education, and the main focus of that Masters, again, very, very practical, is a change project of your choice. Could be your work focus, your passion, it's up to you. We've got an intake starting in July for those who have done the postgrad, and we have a limited number of 50% scholarships available. Those applications close on the 22nd of June, and we have an intake in August for the whole journey from part 1. If you could go to the next slide,
Yes,
please.
sorry, Lisa. Yes,
that's all right.
I clicked the wrong thing. I clicked a link. This is
That's all right. That's all right.
Trust me, I'm a professional.
You are that indeed. So we have a range of things we can help you with funding your study. You can use StudyLink. We've got templates to approach your work or any groups or associations you're part of that articulate the why and that it's applied. So your students, your school, your community feel the benefit of you doing the program. We have early bird discount of 10% for those who apply 4 weeks before the start date. And we have a limited number of 50% scholarships. We have 30% per intake. The scholarships are available are Tangata Whenua, Pacific Ako, Kaipeki for those over 55, and Impact for the intent to do good for the world, people, the planet. We see educators as servant leaders, so Impact is definitely educators, so please see yourself in one of those. And the next slide will show you my contact details. I'm here to help. Please reach out. We're all here to support you on your journey. Thank you, David.
Cool. Thank you, Lisa. Right. So I guess we do a Q&A. And I see there's a couple in there already. Shall I just pick those up, Pip?
Yeah, sure. They look to be more comments of
yeah,
kind
not
of
really
yay.
a question. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think Shafkat's thing was more along the lines of they the students are using AI and they're not even thinking about it. And so,
Yeah.
yes, not so much a question as a sort of a call for help, perhaps. I guess that's one of the things that is a very long conversation, Shafkat. But I think it's often about trying to give the students AI literacy so they kind of understand why that isn't helping them learn. I know that's not a very helpful answer, but I think it's a slow process rather than something where there's an instant solution.
Awesome. And you've got another comment there saying that it was very interesting and they're definitely going to be sharing with their senior and middle leadership teams.
Cool. Well, that's good to hear. Yes, unless Lisa
absolutely.
typed
it. No, it was from anonymous attendee.
Okay, good. No, thank you for that,
so
anonymous attendee. Much appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. You kind of lost me there with vibe coding. I'm not quite sure what that is, but I really liked your final slide on the 5 points and starting with struggle first culture. I think I'm going to pick up on that. That was really good, but there was so much in there. And I have Napkin AI opened up on one of my screen, and I found the effects. So I'm having a play with them.
Cool. Would you like to share what you created? I'm sure those of us who are still in the room would be fascinated to see what you did.
It's kind of confidential stuff at the moment, actually,
okay.
David,
Oh, no, I understand. Sorry. Yes.
But
fair enough. No, I get it.
That's okay. Yeah. But yeah, watch this space. Should be
cool.
good. Yeah. Right. But thank you so much for today. I certainly got a lot out of it, and I'm sure participants who attended did. And appreciate AcademyEx collaborating with us on this series. We've got a next webinar will be with Mila Inkila, which is applying systems thinking when preparing for undefined change in education. And boy, have we got change coming our way. So that will be really interesting. And the QR code there to sign up is right there. And thank you so much. I am going to finish off with a karakia. Kia mātou katoa, kua mutu mātou ia mātou mahi, ia mātou kaupapa hoki. Arahina mātou, kia kawa mātou ia mātou heipapa. Kia whakatapua mātou ki ngā kaupapa me ne mea e whakapono. Manakitia mai mātou. Kia ora everyone, thank you so much.
Ka kite, kia ora.